Alrighty, hello. Good evening. Welcome back to the Law Entrance YouTube channel and to another session of logical reasoning. Today we are starting off with the next topic in our series. In the last class yesterday we did assumptions. The class before we did introduction to logical reasoning. Today we are starting off with conclusions, a very important topic in terms of its relevance for the CLAT exam and a topic which would be useful for other concepts as well. I hope I'm audible and visible. Not a great turnout on the live stream today, but yeah, chalo. I'll wait for a few more seconds for other people to join in, and then we'll start our discussion for the day. Pratyush is here. Good evening, Pratyush. Are you the one who wrote me an email recently? Because one Pratyush wrote to me. Okay, ठीक है, चलो start करें फिर हम लोग, or should we wait for another minute? I think we should wait for 30 more seconds for the rest to join, and then let's begin our discussion. Siddhi is here. Good evening. Acha, okay. Other Pratyush sir. All right. ठीक है. I hope you guys are practicing questions on the topics which we cover. So assumptions किया था कल हमने. I would expect that you guys practice some questions on assumptions. आज हम conclusions करेंगे. In the next couple of classes would be dedicated to practicing questions on assumptions and conclusions because these are two important topics. उसके बाद हम लोग next topic start करेंगे. ठीक है, चलो. Let's begin. Let's not waste any more time. Let's start our discussion. Decoding conclusions. Let's talk about this. So now, as of now, I am hoping that most of you understand what is a logical argument. If you don't, please watch the previous two classes in the series. We have discussed this extensively. A logical argument, as we have discussed, is composed of two components. One is a premise, and the second, and the more important one, is the conclusion. Now, today we are going to decode what exactly is a conclusion. Fair. Now, conclusion, in simple words, is nothing but what the author is trying to establish, what the author is trying to prove, what the author is trying to say, what the author is trying to convince you of. You can put it in any form. It's simply what the main crux of the argument is, what the main point of the argument is. ठीक है. तो जो हमने example दिया था that Govind studies every day for the CLAT exam, therefore he will go to NLS. So therefore he will go to NLS. That's the main point, right? He studies every day. That's a supporting fact. That's a premise. Similarly, take an umbrella with you because it might rain today. So it might rain today. That is the conclusion. Take an umbrella. That is a fact. That is a supporting supporting evidence. So that's a premise. Okay. So conclusion is what you are trying to say. What is your main point? And when it comes to conclusion and specifically questions of conclusion, the conclusion may or may not be in the passage. In some passages, you would see that the author starts with an introduction, then gives you other ancillary details, other arguments, and in the final paragraph, mostly in the final paragraph, the author gives you a conclusion that what is his point of view or what should be done or what is he trying to establish. So he builds up to the conclusion. Sometimes the conclusion is given right in the beginning, and the author supports that conclusion across the passage. So not necessarily always in the later half of the passage. It could be in the initial half of the passage as well, and it could also be true that the conclusion is not stated directly in the passage. You might be required to come to the conclusion after reading the passage. Now, when it comes to conclusion, there are some indicator words which help us understand that here the author is trying to conclude something in a particular argument, in a particular paragraph, or in a particular passage in general. In either of the three cases, you would look for words like therefore, thus, hence, henceforth, as a result, consequently, because इन वर्ड से हमें पता चलता है कि अच्छा अब मुद्दे की बात होने वाली है, अब कुछ कॉन्सिक्वेंस की बात होने वाली है, अब जो मेन चीज है उसकी बात होने वाली है कि ये सारी बातें हमने कर ली एंड इस वजह से ये होगा या इसकी वजह से ऐसा होना चाहिए. So this could be a suggestion, this could be an explanation, this could be a contradiction, this could be a refutation. Conclusion can be in any form. Conclusion is just you coming to the main point of your paragraph or your passage or even your sentence. That is what conclusion looks like. Now, how to find the conclusion? Conclusion would simply be supported by premises. So you would have multiple beliefs, opinions, facts, which would be derived from a statement or could be a statement. These are all premises. And there can be one conclusion out of it. There can be multiple conclusions out of it. The important thing is you don't have to make assumptions for conclusions. Conclusions are quite apparent. Assumptions are hidden. Conclusions are not hidden. Assumptions are unstated. Conclusions are mostly stated. Assumptions are implied. Conclusions are inferred. ठीक है, दो अलग अलग बातें हैं. एक हो गया implied कि हमें पहले से पता है, एक हो गया inferred जो हमने डिड्यूस किया, जो हमने समझा किसी चीज से. ठीक है. एंड कंक्लूजन के लिए इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट यू ओनली यूज द गिवन डेटा और द गिवन प्रेमिस और द गिवन एविडेंस टू कम टू दैट कंक्लूजन. ठीक है. हम कोई कंक्लूजन नहीं ड्रॉ कर सकते विदाउट हैविंग एनफ डेटा टू सपोर्ट इट, विदाउट हैविंग एनफ एविडेंस टू सपोर्ट इट, बिकॉज दैट वुड बी अ कंक्लूजन which is बेसलेस, है ना, उसका कोई सपोर्ट नहीं है. सो अ कंक्लूजन हैज टू हैव समथिंग टू सपोर्ट इट, तभी वो एक वैलिड कंक्लूजन होगा. ठीक है. Now, when you look at approaching the questions, what is the approach like? Firstly, you of course identify the premise and conclusions in the relevant argument. यहाँ पे first लिखा है, but जो भी relevant argument है question का, आप लोग देखोगे इसमें facts क्या लग रहे हैं और इसमें facts prove क्या चीज कर रहे हैं, वो आपको conclusion की तरफ लेके जाएंगे. Then of course you check all of those things which you do in every logical reasoning question, that is it within the scope of the question, is it generic or vague, then I'll eliminate it. If it's too extreme, I'll eliminate it. And if it's too broad and too narrow, I'll also eliminate it. I'll look at the specific conclusion which the question is demanding for me. ठीक है. So this is the simple approach to conclusions. Now the theory aspect of it is very simple, very easy to understand. What's nuanced is how do we apply this to questions, and उसको हम धीरे धीरे काफी सारे questions के through समझेंगे in today's discussion. We'll start with very basic questions, just like we did for assumptions, slightly building up the level with every question. And then in the forthcoming class, in the next class, we'll probably do a mixed bag of questions, which are paragraph based. We'll do assumption based questions, conclusion based questions, based on paragraphs, just like you get them in the CLAT or AILET examination. Okay, so next week is going to be very, very important. Please make sure that you attend classes next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. because you'll be practicing and consolidating both these concepts, assumption and conclusion. आज हमारा थोड़ा foundational class है, आप कह सकते हो. ठीक है, चलो. Are you guys with me till now? Are the theoretical aspects of it clear to you? Please give me a quick yes in the chat if everything which we discussed up till now makes sense. A quick yes would be highly appreciated. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, ठीक है. Let's go and try out some questions. So these are very simple questions. You just have to read the statement and understand whether you can conclude these conclusions out of it or not. It's two conclusions. You have to tell me which of them are true. Let's go. You guys have 30 seconds for this. Once you're done, please type in your answer in the chat box. Pratyush says B. Okay. Siddhi, what do you think? Okay, Siddhi says this should be D. Siddhi's answer is correct. It is option number D. None of the conclusions are true. Let's see why. The statement says in an ODI match played between India and Pakistan, the total runs made by the team was 400. 320 out of 400 were made by pacers. Now, with this information, do you know how many pacers are there in the team? We don't know that. Do you know the Pacers were opening batsmen or not? We don't know that. Do you know, what is the team composition? Like how many batsmen, how many bowlers, within bowlers, how many pacers, how many spinners? No, you don't know that as well. We just know that we made 400 runs and 320 were made by pacers. We don't know the batting order as well, whether the pacers came first in the batting order, middle of the batting order, or last of the batting order. We don't know that as well. What can we conclude out of this? Can we say 80% of the team was made up of pacers just because 80% of the runs were made by pacers? No, you can't really say that. If Sachin Tendulkar scores 80% of the runs, does that mean that Sachin Tendulkar is 80% of the team? No, he's just 1% person out of the 11. So that makes no sense. That's not a valid conclusion. The second conclusion says the opening batsmen were pacers. Now, there's no information given about pacers being opening batsmen, whether they are, whether they are not. Can't really conclude that. We don't have enough information to draw that conclusion. And therefore, neither of the conclusions are true. Therefore, option number D is the correct answer. ठीक है क्योंकि हमें बैटिंग ऑर्डर नहीं that's why. Next question. Pratish, what's your answer? Last 10 seconds before I explain this. ठीक है चलो, let's see this. The question says only good artists are invited to the exhibition. No one without good art knowledge is a good artist. Now, see, this is an example of a question where the statement itself has extreme statements. Therefore, you can have extreme conclusions as well. So this is that kind of a question. कि सिर्फ अच्छे आर्टिस्ट इनवाइटेड हैं एग्जीबिशन में, कोई भी विदाउट गुड आर्ट नॉलेज अच्छा आर्टिस्ट नहीं है. Conclusion 1 says all invited artists in the competition know art well. Yes, you can absolutely conclude that from the statement because it's completely logical that everyone who's invited knows good art and they are a good artist. That's why they are invited. If they did not know art well, they would not have been invited to the competition in the first place. Second conclusion says those artists who do not have good art knowledge are not invited to the exhibition. Yes, you can absolutely conclude that because only the ones who have good art knowledge are invited because they are good artists. So both the conclusions clearly follow. Option number C, both 1 and 2 are true conclusions. Perfect. Next question. This is slightly trickier, but manageable. Okay, 10 more seconds before I explain this one. Okay, let's check this one out. Abolish taxes, and real taxpayers would find that their disposable incomes have increased. Abolish taxes, and public employees would find that their incomes have disappeared. Which one of the following is a logical conclusion that depends on information in both of the statements above? So you have to consider both of the statements together and you have to find the logical conclusion that depends on both of these information. Okay. A says public offices should be abolished so that disposable incomes will rise. Abolishing public offices makes zero sense here, and the statement also does not talk anything about abolishing public offices. So, this is not a valid conclusion. The only real taxpayers are those who have more to spend if they did not pay taxes. दिस वन ऑल्सो डज नॉट मेक अ लॉट ऑफ सेंस कि सिर्फ असली टैक्स पेयर्स वही हैं जिनके पास ज्यादा पैसे होंगे अगर वो टैक्स नहीं देंगे नो वी डोंट नो अबाउट दैट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल एक्सट्रीम स्टेटमेंट सेकंड ऑफ ऑल यू कांट रियली कंक्लूड दैट C says public employees are not real taxpayers. Now, this seems like a logical conclusion because देर आर रियल टैक्स पेयर्स एंड देर आर पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयज एंड उनकी जो डिस्पोजेबल इनकम है दैट इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू ईच अदर यानी कि अगर टैक्सेस खत्म होंगे तो टैक्स पेयर्स की इनकम बढ़ जाएगी और अगर टैक्सेस बढ़ जाएंगे तो पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयज की इनकम जो है गायब हो जाएगी सॉरी अबॉलिश हो जाएंगे तो पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयज की इनकम गायब हो जाएगी सो एक के कम होने से दूसरे की इनकम बढ़ती है और दूसरे की बढ़ने से एक की इनकम कम होती है तो ये ग्रुप जो है सेम तो नहीं हो सकता दीज आर डिस्टिंक्ट ग्रुप्स है ना पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयज आर अ डिफरेंट ग्रुप एंड रियल टैक्स पेयर्स आर अ डिफरेंट ग्रुप तभी जो है एक के बढ़ने से दूसरे का कम हो सकता है बिकॉज अगर ओवरलैप होता तो यू कैन नॉट हैव दैट inverse kind of a relationship. Therefore, C is a very valid conclusion. D says public employees' income should not be taxed since they come from taxes. This is a very vague kind of a conclusion, a very random, you would say, suggestion, not even a conclusion. So, course of action nahi chahiye, hame conclusion chahiye, just based on the two statements. And C is the best choice. Option number C is absolutely correct. Next question. Now we are moving towards paragraphs. 1 minute to solve this question. Good evening, Ruhi. We're doing conclusions today. Okay, last 15 seconds before I explain this question. Okay, let's go through it. The actor Christopher Reeve, who can breathe on his own for 15-minute stretches after experimental surgery to implant electrodes that stimulate the muscles in his diaphragm, told reporters today that he had just had a remarkable experience breathing through his nose instead of through the hole in his throat required by his ventilator. Mr. Reeve was able to identify various smells: an orange, a chocolate chip cookie, a mint, and coffee for the first time in 8 years since a horseback riding accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. I actually woke up and smelled the coffee, he told a news conference at University Hospitals of Cleveland, where the operation was performed. Now, what can be concluded from the passage above? Paralyzed persons lose their sense of odor for some items like coffee. Now, this looks like a very lucrative option, but this is a generalized option, like it's generalizing all paralyzed people. You cannot say that about all paralyzed persons. Just because Christopher Reeve had that experience does not mean that's the same experience for all paralyzed persons. If this would have been some paralyzed persons lose their sense of odor, we could have considered it, but saying paralyzed persons kind of means all paralyzed persons. Therefore, not the correct conclusion. Too extreme, too generalized. B says smelling coffee is nothing short of a miracle for Reeve. Okay, let's see where this is mentioned. He was able to identify various smells like coffee for the first time in 8 years since horseback riding accident. I actually woke up and smelled the coffee. Hmm, nothing short of a miracle. इतना ज़्यादा जो है उसको hype up करना, I don't think that's appropriate, and that's not really a valid conclusion saying that this was nothing short of a miracle. This could be just how standard procedure is when a person wakes up from paralysis, that they get back their smell. So calling it a miracle, the passage does not really justify calling it a miracle. इतना कुछ miraculous उसमें नहीं हुआ है. C says Reeves' experience highlights the power of human will against medical odds. Nowhere in the passage we are told that he fought medical odds. He just had a remarkable experience. That does not mean his odds were not good. and he fought against medical odds. Medical odds हो गया कि उसकी जान जाने ही वाली थी, and 99% it was decided that he would lose his life, or what, not recover, but he suddenly magically miraculously recovered. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ है. He just had an accident, he got paralyzed, and then he started recovering after operation. So against medical odds तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ है यहाँ पे. It's kind of within medical odds. So none of these conclusions can be drawn from the passage above. Therefore, we go with option number D here, which is none of the above. ठीक है? चलो, let's do one more question. Okay, this one is slightly trickier. We'll do another one. We'll do this one. Yes, Ruhi, D was absolutely correct. That question. So usually, how much time should be given to each question? Depends on the question. Largely depends on the question, but for questions like these, 45 to 50 seconds should be the max we should do. For a passage-based question, which has 5 questions, I would say less than a minute per question. So anywhere between 4 to 5 minutes is a good benchmark to have. Ruhi says A. Okay, I'll wait for 15 more seconds before I answer this one. Okay, chalo, let's see this. Michel was born in Vienna in 1930. His father was a modestly successful businessman with a fondness for cafe society and Esperanto, while his mother spent many of her days lying on the couch with an ice pack on her forehead, trying to soothe her frail nerves. The family considered itself fully assimilated, but after the Nazi annexation of Austria in 1938, Michel remembers being taunted in school by the Hitler Youth and watching as his father, hobbled by childhood polio, was forced to limp through the streets in his pajamas. A few weeks after the takeover, while the family was burning evidence of their Jewish ancestry in the fireplace, Walter found a long forgotten certificate of US citizenship issued to his maternal grandfather decades earlier, thus saving his family. That's the most important line in this paragraph. Option number A says certificate of US citizenship is not time bound and can be exercised by descendants. Yes, that is the conclusion which makes sense because it saved their family, even though it was of his maternal grandfather, yani Nana ji. So it can be exercised by descendants. तभी उसकी family से हुई, and it's not time bound because it was a long forgotten certificate, यानी कि time bound तो नहीं है. So A seems to be the very appropriate conclusion. Let's check the other ones. If Michel would not have found the certificate, he and his family would surely have been murdered. Surely नहीं कह सकते. Likely, most likely अगर ऐसा होता तो we could have said that, but surely would be a little extreme. Michel had a luxurious childhood till the annexation of Australia, and his Jewish ancestry became his only bane in life. Again, too extreme and unrelated. Not the correct option. A is absolutely right as the answer. ठीक है, let's do mm, 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 mm. यार ये वाले थोड़े से डिफिकल्ट हो जाएंगे आप लोगों के लिए, चलो ठीक है, लेट्स ट्राई दिस वन, लेट्स ट्राई वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन। थोड़े से एडवांस्ड हैं बट ठीक है, विल डू दिस लास्ट क्वेश्चन फॉर द डे। Okay, we done. Siddhi says A, Rui says B. Let's check this out. Somewhere a long time ago, religion let me down. And somehow, on this night before the last meal, before I don a white hood, I have ended up here, reliving the last meal, passing my hand unconsciously from my forehead to my heart and to either shoulder, no, yes, astonishingly pantomiming the pantomime of blessing myself. Pantomiming is एक तरीके से आप कह सकते हो एक मतलब थिएट्रिकल वो होता है परफॉर्मेंस क्रिश्चियनिटी से रिलेटेड। Says why. Now, we can see this is more of a symbolic passage. It's more of an abstract kind of a passage. Which of the following cannot be concluded about the author? Okay. He's thoroughly confused about his latent religious awakening and is responding to his instincts mechanically. Okay, we'll come back to it. We'll read all the options first. He has led a life of sin and has come to repent and beg for forgiveness in his dying moments. Okay, he's bitter, disillusioned man who had given up on religion in moment of peak matlab curiosity, and is now seeking redemption. He's a priest who has been plagued by self doubts and harbors doubts about his faith. तो D तो हम conclude कर सकते हैं from the given information. We can easily conclude D. A भी हम एक तरीके से conclude कर सकते हैं कि he is confused and about his religious awakening because clearly says religion has let me down. ठीक है. Pantomiming of blessing myself also points to that confusing wali direction. C says he's a bitter, disillusioned man who had given up on religion in a moment of peak and is now seeking redemption. Yes, seeking redemption is also indicated, reliving the last meal, passing hand unconsciously, like blessing yourself. So आप कह सकते हो. Bitter, disillusioned थोड़ा सा far fetched है, but still एक तरीके से आप कह सकते हो. B says he has led a life of sin and has come to repent and beg for forgiveness in his dying moments. Dying moments एक बार को हम फिर भी सोच सकते हैं, but him leading a life of sin and coming to repent and beg for forgiveness, इसका हमारे पास कोई भी इंडिकेशन नहीं है पैसेज में. So this is something which we cannot conclude by any means. A, C and D, we still have some clues, some hints to possibly come to that conclusion. But B is something which is completely off track. इससे उसके सिन के बारे में कोई मेंशन नहीं है, उसकी रिपेंटनेस के बारे में कोई मेंशन नहीं है, फॉरगिवनेस के बारे में कोई मेंशन नहीं है. एंड डाइंग मोमेंट्स भी थोड़ा सा फार फेस्ट है. लास्ट मील से आप कह सकते हो कि डाइंग मोमेंट्स है, बट अगेन द फर्स्ट फ्यू फ्रेजेस वी हैव नो एविडेंस ऑफ दैट. देयरफॉर बी इज समथिंग व्हिच वी कैन नॉट कंक्लूड अबाउट द ऑथर एंड देयरफॉर इट बिकम्स द राइट आंसर. ठीक है. With that, we wrap up today's discussion. थोड़े से questions हमने किए, concept समझा, आज conclusions का. In the next few classes, next couple of classes, we'll practice more questions which are mixed questions of assumptions and conclusions. So the next couple of classes are important. Please make sure that you attend Tuesday, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. And now I'll see you guys in the Hindu analysis at 8 p.m. Till then, take care. Bye bye. See you next class.